Hey everybody, what is going on? I am Maximus Rex. This is Big Baby Reviews. Today is JAE LEE Tuesday, so we're looking at the next issue of his NAMOR the Sub-Mariner run from the early 90s, cover dated January 1992, issue number 34, with the added moniker at the top of the Savage NAMOR the Sub-Mariner. That's quite a mouthful. I don't know how long that's going to stick around. But once again, we're looking at some really awesome JAE LEE artwork, kind of at his 90s peak at least. I think JAE LEE is one of those artists who's had many different peaks, and his style has changed and evolved throughout those peaks, obviously. So we're really kind of looking at the style now that brought him to the table and got him popular, just prior to his working on Youngblood Strike File, or being published by Image, I should say, because I do believe like some of these issues were drawn in and around the same time as he was doing that Youngblood Strike File stuff. JAE LEE known to draw really quickly, at least at, around this time in his early in his career. He's very young, and he's claimed to have been doing 6 or 7 pages a day in around this time. So when you know that, it is kind of, it makes sense with the type of artwork that he's showing us. Very kind of quick and rough and gritty, which I really like. And his style is cleaned up somewhat in modern times, so maybe that does require a little more care and attention, and maybe he doesn't quite work as fast as before. All suppositions, I don't know for sure. Great looking cover, definitely represents the Savage kind of moniker they've added to him, to the title, but he'll look a little bit different on the inside here. He'll have the ponytail look slicked back, a little more similar to what we're seeing over here in the Marvel Comics box. So let's crack her open, have a look inside. Always marvel at JAE LEE's knack at throwing out really cool, simple, evocative, establishing shots. Obviously, I'm going to assume that's New York. Certainly is maybe not geographically accurate, but certainly these are the Twin Towers that do not stand anymore. Obviously, in 1992, they were still up. So, having covered a lot of 90s comics, it does come up from time to time, right? Just a little bit of brilliance of having the top of this tower here pop out of the frame and overlap it, helping once again to create that sense of depth. Overlaying 2 kind of panels on top also helps there, kind of creates 3 planes where there almost aren't more than that, right? Within the image, there's, the plane with the buildings and the water reflection, and whatever's hinted at behind that, the sky and the water, there's not even a horizon line between them. Same color all the way through, and I think that still works, and we completely understand what's going on there. I guess we're on Long Island right now, looking at New York, I would assume. Is that geographically accurate? I don't know. I think so. If I remember, every time I've been to New York, I think Long Island, when you're down here, where, is it Battery Park? I forget the names, but the Statue of Liberty is like over here. Anyways, I'm getting away from myself, not a geography lesson. So I like kind of the almost abstract look of the water in both of these. I've said before, JAE LEE just has a knack of making water work in very kind of simple visual terms, and 2 good examples there of, some waves on the surface, something kind of bubbling up and something popping out of the water. All of this done, I'm assuming, pretty quickly and just visually very effective. Love the color scheme as well, kind of pretty much monochrome on this page. I'm going to speak to as well, I was preparing the thumbnails for last week's review. I put up, if you notice, as a thumbnail for issue 32 of NAMOR, I put up like an original art page that I found online instead of the cover. Once in a while, instead of just putting the cover, if I find some interesting artwork related to that issue, some black and white stuff, some original pages, whatever, I'll put those up once in a while. And JAE LEE had a double page splash that I found in black and white, the original art, and I put that up as a thumbnail. And clearly, my theory is right as to the fact that I've mentioned many times. I do believe JAE LEE was drawing full bleed original art, but that it was being reduced a little bit for whatever reason here in NAMOR. I guess NAMOR still was not of the Marvel format that was full bleed, like some of their comics. I don't want to say higher end comics, but I guess it costs a little more to get full bleed comics printed. So something like NAMOR, which sold less, I can understand they were just still printing the old fashioned way. Again, this is all kind of guesswork on my part, but I do believe I'm onto something here where, the process for full bleed comics versus traditional comics with the border. There's a reason why comics had this white border, right? Back in the day, like practical reason. It's because of how printing was done, and full bleed was not yet possible, right? That's literally the main reason. Not that I think I do, to be honest, prefer full bleed comics, because I feel with that you can either do the more traditional paneling within it, or then push past that with some of the full bleed and the bordering and stuff. So You know, I don't think one is better than the other. Maybe one seems a little more traditional and old-timey and old school, and I feel like Full Bleed, obviously when Image started, kind of was a I've talked about how I think part of the Image look is the fact that all their comics were full bleed, right? No one really mentions it, but I think that's a big part of it, of their visual appeal and giving their comics a more modern kind of feel, as opposed to Marvel Comics still being printed with this border here. Like this page here clearly would be way more evocative if this border went all the way up and around and this came down to the bottom of the page. It would look more like an Image book, basically. Even though, as I said, I do think the coloring is better on these issues of Namor than on Youngblood Strike File, even though when I was a kid I would have said Strike File had the better colors, right? Because it's cooler and more modern. Just love the way he always throws in splatter. You know, like I said, very controlled lines sometimes, and then very kind of messy stuff. So you got the messy here and here. I have to assume that's a screen tone because those horizontal lines are just so perfect. It almost looks like old computers, like kind of digital screens. That's an interesting shot of the Ninja Turtles. Oh, I guess this is the arcade game, or the same kind of playability as the arcade game. There were many different versions of the side-scrolling kind of Ninja Turtles games. I used to love that, though, on Super Nintendo. Turtles in Time, I think it was. Don't know about this one on the Genesis. So here's another good example. These are kind of like just more storytelling pages. Not too much is going on. I mean, the story is advancing in subtle ways, but just art-wise, the fact that these pages should be full bleed and go all the way to the edge there. Already, if that was going on, like, you know, compare again to I've talked to like the Image comics, right? It would right away look more like an Image comic. And that's, again, Rob Liefeld, Todd McFarlane were pushing for that in their own series. They got it on X-Force and on Spider-Man, no adjective. I have to wonder if, you know, they weren't the first to push for that actually behind the scenes. Like, it's supposition on my part, but I do believe it has something to do with the fact that eventually pretty much all comics became full bleed, but Image were the first to do it systematically, and it makes sense that they went and got a guy like Jim Lee, JAE Lee, who's clearly, again, composing for that full bleed page and really not getting the results he wants. The art is shrunk down a bit. I don't know if that helps it in any way. I don't know if that's a good thing. But again, I can just tell that these pages should be full bleed and they're not. It's kind of annoying now that I go through these pages. Another masterful, again, establishing shot, just so small and far away. Again, shrunken pages, but bringing us back to Namor, New York here. There's a caption that helps out, but I mean, this sets the tone, right? You know that's New York with very little. It's like almost like a McFarlane, but like broken down into even simpler forms and from further away. The further away you draw things, the less detail you have to add to them, right? But still he finds a way to make the pages and some of the images interesting. A great great masterful use of silhouette here with her hair kind of off in the distance, merging almost with the waves in the water. How do I know we're underwater? The few bubbles that JAE Lee kind of gives us here, right? Kind of throws them in every once in a while so we know we're underwater. Because to be honest, just in the basic kind of form of things, you know, as the story goes from plot A to B to C and then back around, it all does kind of look the same. You know, the color palette and choices change, but you know, you got the hot colors and then the cool colors. But other than that, you know, there's not really much to distinguish between both settings. Again, there's a reason why JAE Lee can draw so many pages during this period. Lots of silhouette. I guess when he's doing mostly silhouettes, it's because deadlines are looming or something. This is a fairly silhouette heavy page, but that still works really well. These creatures here that we saw earlier kind of revealing themselves slowly, still much in silhouette, but like the motif we had before in the foreground image I talked about, we've got the eyes appearing here in the darkness. And then we get a shot of Tiger Shark here, who, I was going to mention this, is just weirdly, you know, you could almost mistake this for Namor again, kind of going full on savage. And since this issue kind of mentions that, you know, the savage Namor on the cover, you could almost get confused here. It would have been maybe a good idea, obviously, to make him different with the teeth and the claws, all of this stuff. But the hair is so similar to Namor is that it kind of throws you off. Though already, if he had long hair and he was blonde, that would make a huge difference. But you could get, or a little bit confused between our main character Namor and Tiger Shark, who appears here. I like this thing, this shot down here. It's almost like Skeletor from He-Man. The color choice and stuff just works really well. It's just simple and effective. Very cool. Nice close-up, Kirby style close-up, I would call that. Just because he did those first. Did he? I could be wrong on that, but I feel like he did. These ships are great. Again, past issues when he was doing boats and ships and stuff. So evocative with so little, right? It's all about the actual shape of it, the negative space around it, and just the little flourishes he adds on top to give you a sense of like, I'm not quite sure what the size of these is supposed to be. Like, I almost imagine these as being pretty big, like a Star Trek ship or something, because these are all like small little individual windows. It does seem like, pretty expansive ship there. I say ship, they're underwater, right? So, who's this Skeletor dude? JAE LEE makes him look cool, though. Just the classic, simple layouts and compositions that he does, right? Sticks to basic shapes and is just super effective with this again, this establishing shot here of this citadel and castle, whatever you want to call it. It's Atlantis. So we're still underwater. Again, no indication here. A little bit of bubbles. Even the skeleton has to breathe. Now on this page, it gets pretty chaotic up here. I would say maybe like he's, definitely experimenting, but it gets away from him here to a certain degree. Like it's almost a little too abstract. Maybe not the first panel, kind of works, but this one's just kind of odd, I find. I don't know if the coloring has something to do with it. Then we get a better sense of more of, the ship crashing down the trenches, basically. I feel is like what's going on there. And we reveal that the attacker is a brood creature, right? That's just kind of a ripoff of aliens in the X-Men universe. At least I assume that's what it was, but it's actually like a huge creature, underwater creature. So I don't know for sure if it's the brood or some sort of offshoot of it. Definitely a Geiger ripoff for sure, and that fits into JAE LEE's wheelhouse art-wise perfectly. He's very inspired by Geiger, and you can see it in various different eras of his art, that there's always a little bit of that Geiger influence that works in to a lesser degree or to a higher degree sometimes as well. If I remember correctly, like in Humans, it really felt like he was just kind of taking Jack Kirby's designs and mixing in the Geiger stuff with it, like mixing it together to create this new kind of JAE LEE hybrid. But yeah, this creature is absolutely huge. So I don't know. I've never seen the brood depicted that size. And here's another good example of how we move from Namor's part of the story to tiger sharks, and there's really no indication, and there's nothing in the and even in the color scheme right now, it's pretty similar, right? The greens and the dark blues and stuff. So tiger shark, again, as I said, other than the teeth and the claws, it's very easy to mistake him for Namor. He's kind of got more of a mohawk thing going, which is kind of cool. He's got a cool look in the silhouette here. Of course, his name is Tiger Shark, so he should have, I guess, some sort of visual representation of his fin, right? That's kind of the idea here, but a more 90s version of it, of course. His silhouette works really well. I think it looks good here. A lot of cool image style stuff to work with, right? The Batman fins on the arm and the ponytail and stuff. Still underwater. Bubble, bubble. Yeah, so another shot of the creature here. And again, we've just moved over to Namor. So it's very confusing in this whole issue. But I'm mostly here for the art. Like I said, the story's kind of crazy and all over the place, as is the art. And that's kind of part of the fun of it, too. This is, to a certain extent, like pretty much an image comic without the computer coloring and the full bleed. Really like this texture here that he uses. I wonder if he's getting it. Kelly Jones, I've seen use this a bunch of times, which I think he probably got from Bernie Wrightson. I've seen him use that as well. It's interesting to fill in a whole plane with just these little bubble shapes. Almost like I could almost see this page. Again, I've talked about JAE LEE being kind of a heavy metal artist. I could definitely see this in a heavy metal magazine. This page particularly, just colored a bit differently, right? And the creature's over and done with. We're left with a cool image of a skeleton with a huge horn in his hand. And it's batshit crazy. but visually just a feast for the eyes. Another great issue from JAE LEE. Story-wise, not quite so sure what's going on, but that's okay. We're here for the art mostly, at least when it comes to this comic. Yeah, so I would definitely say that Namor, at this point, without John Byrne at the helm, seems to be kind of even more all over the place with Bob Harris, I think is his name, who's doing the story now. So, and an interesting comic. I had no idea Bob Harris had ever done anything like that. I know he was editor for a while. He was responsible for helping out Rob Liefeld, I think, is kind of his claim to fame that I've heard. If you know anything else, let me know in the comments. Subscribers, if you're still watching, thank you so much. I really appreciate it. If you are watching but you're not subscribed, please do so below. Helps us out on the road to 500 subscribers, where YouTube finally really recognizes us as an official channel. So hopefully we can get there sooner rather than later with your help out there. Any questions, comments, concerns, let me know in the comments. Everyone out there watching, thank you so much for doing so, checking out the vids, and have an awesome day. King Comics presents Big Baby, Volume 1, Issues 1 to 13, 204 pages of story and art. King Comics also presents Star Crasher one-shot, 32 pages, cosmic sci-fi surrealist adventure. You can find these fine comics at KIngComics.CA, at MaximusRex13 on Instagram, or on Facebook, MaxRex or Big Baby.
Like! Subscribe!